Hey, let's talk about Resident Evil. Holy shit, did you see that trailer for Resident Evil at E3? Well, of course you did. It's been like fucking 3 or 4 months now. Resident Evil has not had the best track record, and I don't need to go over their downward spiral from a critically acclaimed survivor horror to an action-adventure zombie shooting gallery. And I'm not going to talk about the many flawed game mechanics. Not everyone hates what Resident Evil has become in recent years, but most of its original fanbase, including myself, are one of those people. But then came along E3 with a trailer for the next Resident Evil installment, far different from any other Resident Evil predecessor. Nobody was even sure what this game was until the Resident Evil name came up, so I guess Capcom said, you know what, fuck it, you see Outlast? Be more like that. You see PT Silent Hill demo? Be more like that. And this is considered a big risk, the change Resident Evil 7 is undergoing, and this is such a good thing. Not many companies are willing to do that. I mean, look at Call of Duty, for example. I mean, I have a lot of grudges against you, Capcom, and I will get into it in a video sooner or later. But this is fully appreciated. Let's talk about Resident Evil 7. As anyone will tell you, the first thing you'll notice is the change from third person to first person. A good design choice in my opinion, making the game feel a little bit more immersive. But this isn't the first change in the franchise in regard to how the player sees. In earlier Resident Evil games, there were fixed camera angles given a more cinematic feel. The developers could create anxiety and dread in the player by controlling what the player could see and what they could not. Though Resident Evil was not the one who invented the fixed camera angles, they did a pretty damn good job with it. The idea of fixed camera angles came from the game Alone in the Dark. The second most notable change is the shift from action-adventure to center a more horror survival feel to it, something long-time Resident Evil fans has been waiting a while for, and gave up on. The Capcom team plans on going back to its horror roots, and to be honest, this looks like an entirely different game altogether. The look and feel of this game seems to be more than just your typical zombie outbreak. It's with a more supernatural feel to it, with ghosts and shit. So it makes you wonder, where's the franchise going with Resident Evil? Especially with its history of its predecessors. It invokes a lot of curiosity, and it makes me so excited for it. The story of Resident Evil 7 is taking place sometime after Resident Evil 6, which makes sense and indeed a continuation of the franchise. The protagonist is a completely different character this time around instead of the same ones we're given, who are almost performing some superhuman ability that pushes the limits of what's reasonable. As for where it takes place, most of Resident Evil 7 will be in a singular location, a huge mansion. Sounds familiar? Another sign that Capcom is taking their word seriously about going back to their roots. Though it may seem cliche, and to be fair, it's very cliche, this isn't a bad thing if done right. And so far, Capcom is doing everything right. There has been a lot of analytical videos about the demo of Resident Evil 7. Here, check this guy's video out, he does an amazing job going over it. I'll put it down in the description below if you're curious. I'm personally hoping for a few game mechanics that will make it through the final game. First and foremost, Resident Evil 7 needs to keep the feeling of helplessness and dread on the player, if Capcom expects to pull off a Konami with their PT trailer. If Resident Evil slowly became a zombie shooting gallery, again, I swear to fucking Christ, I'll be one pissed off motherfucker. And to continue that feeling of helplessness, Resident Evil needs to return to its limited ammo and resource management type of gameplay. It just needs to be there, because what would be the point if the player goes around spraying bullets in every room and carrying a million first aid sprays? Nothing. You won't feel like anything's at stake, thus you are breaking the game's immersion. And plus it didn't make much sense being showered with ammo and ammunition just after killing every fucking zombie. Something that will be interesting to see Capcom pull off is that in a game like Outlast, for example, it keeps the feeling of helplessness by having no combat mechanic against the enemies. But Resident Evil 7 has a combat mechanic. It will be interesting to see how this will balance out the gameplay. Limited inventory will act as the same as past Resident Evil, with certain items taking a certain amount of space to carry around. As far as the story goes, if Capcom decides to go with a cliche storyline similar to the past few games we've had, they would be missing a big opportunity to smack us with something crazy and unexpected. But not so crazy it's unrealistic. What we've been shown in the demo just seems so good. So much mystery is surrounding the residents of the mansion. Resident Evil 7 will be compatible with VR. This might be a bag of mixed opinions, with some VR games being very immersive and others not so much. Whether you think this will improve the actual gameplay or not, it will certainly be interesting to see what happens. I have really high hopes for Resident Evil 7, and I fully heartedly believe this franchise can reclaim their spot as the #1 survivor horror game again. Resident Evil 7 will be released in about 4 months, and if there's some kind of delay that will happen, that will be okay in my book, because no one thought this game was going to be made. Well, we were, just in a more action-packed story, where Chris Redfield says fucking and just fights all the zombies with his bare hands, with some slightly sexualized partner. And zombies not only had to learn to shoot guns, but talk and establish communities, and I swear to fucking god this shit makes no sense whatsoever, but fuck it, it's a new Resident Evil is here, and I welcome it. Hey babes, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for the slow uploads. I've been a little busy, and I've made 2 Let's Talk About videos in a row. And this is me stalling, more or less, because the games of September aren't really up my alley. They're more sports months type of games. So I'm just waiting until next month, where we have a lot of games coming. There's Mafia 3, Gears of War 4, Five Nights at Freddy's, Sister Location, Friday the 13th, and I'm sure I'm missing a few, but whatever. Not to say I'm absolutely going to cover all of these games. I may or may not, but I'm certainly going to try to. So I'm sure the next couple of months is going to be pretty interesting for me. And also my 1,000 subscriber mark will be coming up at some point, maybe a month or next month. I don't know. The growth is really random to me sometimes. But I'm guessing I should do something like every other YouTuber does. Q&A, I guess? The thing is, I don't know how interested you guys are into my life. So I'll probably also do a separate video about that for you to leave your questions. You can also leave them here if you want. I don't really mind or care. And if I don't get that many questions, I could just make them up. Whip up a few fake YouTube accounts and just ask away myself questions. Kind of like this one. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I will see you later, babes.